She said, gee, I'm not really interested in dying at this stage. I'm just in my early 50s. And she started to employ some of the methodologies her grandmom used as a village doctor in Lithuania. Now, doctors were not formally trained then. Thank God they were helping people. They literally would use herbs and grasses and love, and you know, it was a healing process that went on there. And this little girl, our founder, Ann Wigmore, literally watched Grandmom heal people. And Lithuania had been in war for 100 years. Not that they wanted to be. Just like other places in the world, occupying nations would come in and take over. So Grandmom wasn't only delivering babies and taking care of common colds, she was putting arms back on people. With what? Again, herbs, barks of trees, grasses, food, and love. So she learned this, thank goodness, to save her own life. Now her problem was she had no formal education, thank God. Because if she had, she would have talked herself out of saying this to anyone else. She would have said, wait a minute, I didn't go to medical school, so I can't say anything to anyone else. But she said, gee, if I healed myself after the schmoes up on the hill in Boston, at Mass General, the Harvard doctors told me basically I was going to die, I better let other people know. And that's how we started. So at this vantage point, in my early days, in the 1970s, working at Hippocrates, I would imagine that 95% of who came to us had weeks or months to live. Back then, nobody would have ever fathomed coming to Hippocrates unless they were just about dead. Why? Because we all believed in that early point that modern science was going to save our lives, lead us out of darkness. When I went to school for science, I actually believed I was joining an army of people that would heal all forms of disease. Because we were formally taught at postgraduate studies that by the year 2000, every major disease would be gone, eradicated. Now what happened is the total opposite of that, by the way. Every major disease has skyrocketed, gone through the roof. Now it's permeating the youngest members of our culture and society. Revisit diabetes. 2 out of 3 people that get type 2 diabetes now are children below 16. Look at cardiovascular disease. A wonderful guest that comes to us once a year is an RN with a master's degree. She came to me 3 years ago and said, I'm going to quit. She's been an ER nurse for over 35 years. She said, I can't take another 20-year-old coming in on the stretcher and dying from a heart attack. She said, when I started this, it was easy because 60, 80-year-old people were dying. But it's really, I can't take another 20-year-old dying. She said, the youngest I saw was a 16-year-old obese boy that literally died as he came into the ER from cardiovascular arrest. Now, I can relate to that because I was obese before it was fashionable and stylish to be obese. But I was a man, so a boy, and they never called me fat, they used to call me big. So I got away with it. Until one day I finally realized when I walked up the stairs I couldn't breathe. So that's what started my course. Not that I was smart, I wasn't smart. I was a well-educated idiot. And those people with great educations do not mean that you're thinkers, it means that you're trainable. Recognize that. Now there are a few people who are really trainable who also think, but that's the exception. Usually people who are really trainable don't think outside the box. That's why the robotic and pretty much the professions that are supposed to help you all pretty much say the same thing, which means nothing to most of you any of the time. But the scary part is if you don't know what I just said, you believe them, and that's really scary. Because it's like beyond comprehension sometimes. I mean, you know, recently a friend of mine's mother was at a hospital, a boutique hospital in New York City. They did very well in their life. Father went in for, 70-some-year-old man, went in for triple bypass. As he's awakening and his wife is coming in to see him, what's sitting in front of him? A steak meal. And so the mother, who thank God's enlightened, because years ago she came to us, her son has been on the program for 30 years, and the mother came to us and healed stage 3 cancer. So she's been obviously adapted to the program. And she said, where is the doctor, to the nurse? And the nurse said, well, he's somewhere in the hospital. She had to run through the hospital there in New York City. Finally found the doctor and said to the doctor, listen, you're feeding my husband steak. You know what this renowned cardiologist said? He doesn't like steak. It's like a 60-year-old doctor who people fly in from around the world to get him to operate on. This is how brain dead we are. Cancer doctors. How many of you have had cancer here and talked to any oncologist about it? Oncologists are really interesting people. You say, doctor, what should I eat? Anything. Go home and eat anything. You've got to say fat because the chemotherapy is going to knock all the weight off you. So just keep eating. Now, can you imagine a cancer doctor saying that? Can you imagine a diabetic doctor saying, we really don't know where diabetes comes from? An autistic doctor saying, well, they probably are autistic, but a doctor who specializes in autism saying, we don't know where autism comes from? We don't know why multiple sclerosis is multiplying or Parkinson's disease is multiplying? Well, Hippocrates has figured it out. We haven't even had a $1,000 research grant, no less $1 million or $1 billion research grant. Every year they spend billions of dollars, the pharmaceutical industry, researching more and more and more and more to do what? To find ways to sell you more products, with the inevitable result being nobody gets well. And so it's a pretty scary scenario out there. But rather than bashing the doctors and bashing the system, you've got to take yourself, raise your self-esteem, and live with a level of integrity that you never did before.